A little bit more of the feel of.
Should have been in North Dakota this morning. Okay, this is our monthly city council meeting. It's February the 18th. So we'll all in order.
Mayor Lycors,
Here.
Councilor Phillips,
Here.
Councilor Pendergrass.
Here.
Councilor Spring.
Here.
Councilor Risedorfer.
Here.
And we got Mike online and Joe here in person. And Kane. Kane, you still here? Yep. Okay.
Thanks, Mike, for joining us. Okay, so we have our approval for agenda.
I have make a motion to add one thing, which is what I
For
passed
sure.
out for the.
I'll make a motion to approve it
Okay.
first. Okay, second it.
Second.
Discuss.
Yeah, then, so. I'd like to add the application that there is for a grant to join planning and zoning. And have that under the planning and zoning. D, and so we can have that as two I's, double I, or whatever.
Under 8D.
D, and if he's double I or whatever it is. And I also had some other things to add for a couple captains and another position that there was for fire department. And we can do that one under double I as well, under E.
What was that for again?
There's 3 appointments that were done. There's 2 captains and a safety officer that was added to the fire department.
Is that in the minutes?
No, there weren't any minutes for that came through, so.
Two members?
Well, 2 members for captain and 1 for safety officer.
They're already members, right? They're just-
Yeah, but they got new positions.
You have the names for them?
Yes, I do.
Go with the captain real quick.
Yeah, it's gonna be Taylor Armstrong for the captain.
Good.
And Kent Johnson.
And you said safety.
Safety officer is Caleb Timmerman.
Is there a second for your motion?
I made the motion, I did.
I said Daniel second.
Second, the
Did
motion
you-
Daniel second.
for open discussion, right? However that works.
I think it'd be good just to continue that awareness of trying to get things into the packet.
And I have been doing the diligent, so I worked on that with Daniel, so, yeah, we're getting down there and then working on it, so.
The planning and zoning met after the packet was published, so that's why the addendum is coming this late. Yeah. I think it's just one
That's
of just a
another good
few.
reason to have P and Z the first Thursday of the month instead of the second.
Now, we might talk about it but no, we brought it up last meeting.
Yeah, and it's, well, I think we need to get everybody in there because we're still -1 that there is at P and Z. And then when you get everybody in there, then I think that we can come up.
Approve this and talk about that,
Yeah.
planning and zoning.
That's fine.
Any other comments? All in favor of the motion to, first of all, add these motion for this agenda. For these items, then we'll have another motion to approve the agenda. So all in favor of these changes, signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Your second,
Second.
Dan? There's no other comments. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Okay. Next item is our public forum. The city council welcomes and encourages participation from community members. Please keep in mind that your comments must be pertinent to city business and must adhere to data privacy rules. No employees' names may be used. Please do not expect action from the council this evening. Regarding your concerns to address the city council during public forum, please step to the podium, state your name and address, and fill out the form provided. Speakers will be recognized only once. You will be timed. Begin speaking with the green card is raised from Jason. The yellow card indicates you have 30 seconds left, and the red card indicates you have reached your 3-minute time limit. So with that, we'll open the public forum at 6:34. Holly Brown.
Holly Brown, live on Center Street, West Center Street here in Orinoco, and I wanted to share about services for those age 55 and better in our city.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thanks for letting me come. I'm kind of wearing 2 hats tonight. One is I'm a staff at Elder Network, which is a nonprofit that serves older adults in our community. And then also I'm a part of the age-friendly Orinoco area group. And we're just really passionate about making sure that our aging adults 55 and better aren't invisible. And I want to come today just to say that even though we have agencies that are willing to provide services to our seniors here, it also comes with its challenges. What we're finding is that there is a lack of individuals who are able to provide services in our rural communities. And so with that, we're having seniors wait longer for the services that they need to be able to stay in their home, which is really what they desire. You ask any senior what their long-term goal is to stay at home for as long as they can. And that does require either them looking at getting help when they need it or making adjustments to their home so they can stay there safely. What we're seeing is that individuals are struggling to be able to afford to upgrade their home to what's necessary or even afford the services that are out there, even though they are on a sliding fee scale. What I'd like to come today to talk to the council about is just bringing more awareness to our community and the fact that we have this median age of 36-year-olds. I really want to encourage us to encourage our younger folks and newly retired folks to just become more aware and more involved and helping out our neighbors so that everyone can stay living here who chooses to want to live here. And that's really what we're passionate about. And I just want to make sure that all individuals of all ages feel welcome here in Orinoco and that we can thrive together and that hopefully our seniors don't go invisible to us as we're continuing to grow and expand and be better. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Anybody on public forum on the Zoom that would like to speak? Second call for public forum. And third call for public forum. Close public forum at 6:40. On our agenda for discussion is a city administrator. Here. Regarding the cost security agreement.
So, and Mike will be able to touch in on this a little bit. So in the packet there, you have the cost security agreement for Gold Rush Crossings project. This was put together just kind of close to our template with the help of Mike. Basically to help with any associated costs that come through, as we're already spending money working with the developers in this project. This is something we've typically done with other projects as well. Mike, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
I'm so apologize. Mayor and council, I don't have much to add. It's for the newer members on council. I think we've done one of these agreements and many different developments. Um, I guess the only thing I would add is I don't know that the developer here is actually going to sign this. I think the idea here is we want the council to approve it so that when we meet with the developer, we have a meeting scheduled next week. Things got delayed because Joe was on vacation for a week and the developer couldn't do it this week. So we're meeting next week. But yeah, they might not sign this. I guess what we're asking for is the council to approve this. So if they change their, after we meet, if they're willing to sign it and move the project forward, we don't have to waste more time coming to council next month. In terms of the amount that was selected, I think that was more Joe's direction. He can maybe speak it to a little bit. I think it's always an estimate as to how much you're charging for this. And hopefully we'll have more information after we meet with the developer and their engineer next week.
And with that security deposit, you'll see later in the fee schedule, these are kind of set up in the fee schedule too. So we're trying to make them customary across the board. So anybody coming in, they know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be at a set price depending on the size of the land. No, do you have anything you want to add to this?
It's just really a mechanism to ensure that the city gets reimbursed for its costs associated with facilitating a private development. It carries or it allows you to get reimbursed for the initial cost of the development up to the point where an actual full development agreement is developed. And at that point, you usually have a preliminary plat and preliminary construction plans, and you know what all of the pieces of the puzzle are. And at that point, it allows that agreement to take over. But we do set an amount within the agreement. It's an estimate. If we don't reach that estimate, the developer is reimbursed those costs. If we exceed it, they have to pay those costs too. All developments are really different factors, different complications, and the costs do vary. The point of the agreement is really to protect the city from investing lots of money into a development, and then ultimately the development doesn't go forward and the city's left holding the bill.
Thank you.
I'm kind of curious how much we spent putting this together. They weren't involved in the discussion of what's in this.
That's a cost security agreement that's probably been in play in Orinoco for 10, 12 years. We've probably been using it.
The developers have no discussion of what's in it, I guess.
Really? No.
It's negotiable.
Well, it is to the point, to some points in terms of what it really covers, but the ultimate goal is that the city's costs are covered by the agreement.
But
I would say it is negotiable, Paul, but we have to provide it to them and then they have to negotiate. So if they change it or we agree to something different, we'll have to bring it back to get approved again at the next meeting. So, and they could negotiate either the amount or the terms of it. We didn't put much work into this. Like Joe said, we used the template kind of agreement that we'd used for a long time. I did make a few changes to it, and I think Joe made a few changes, but basically it was just the same agreement we always use.
One comment just from my experience with these security agreements. Outside of the total dollar figure, I don't remember having any conversations about any of the verbiage that's in the agreement. Pretty straightforward.
I think the issue at this point with this particular development is they don't want to pay any costs really at all. And so I'm not sure it's the particular language they're going to want to negotiate. I think it's something where we want the council to approve it so that we can present it to them and say they've approved it and this is one of the next steps. And then we'll just see where it goes when we meet with them. And Joe's right. So Joe's basically saying that, when you pay your engineer to go to these meetings and your attorney and all this, that, it's going to cost money. And we haven't even really started drafting the development agreement yet. And when we do that and negotiate that, that's going to cost money just to negotiate that agreement. So, um,
And there's
So
other
that's-
tasks, reviewing preliminary plats and grading plans and those types of things. Usually the development agreement is drafted kind of midway through the process and is executed towards the end of the process when all of the variables are known. And so there's that interim gap where a lot of hours are spent to work the project through. And it's really a mechanism, again, to protect the city from being bearing all of the costs of a development that, for whatever reason, might not move forward. Maybe the city chooses not to grant a variance. Maybe the developer ultimately decides it's too expensive. Maybe, they do soil borings and find that there's all kinds of rock and the costs are too high. There's lots of reasons that developments don't go forward, and it mitigates the city's risk with these types of with the development process on the front end. So it's.
and I think to add to that, maybe for the newer members that weren't on council when the Hamilton thing went through, but the development agreement also will, by its terms, charge costs to the developer. I mean, that's the main point of the development agreement. What this is just an agreement where they're going to cover the city's costs until there's a signed development agreement. And then once there's a signed development agreement, there'll be an agreement about costs, what costs they're going to pay and what costs they're not going to pay. And that's kind of what they want to negotiate next week. So, so that's where we're at with this particular one. Joe has probably a better reference than I do, but I mean, for a lot of these, I wasn't even involved in drafting them for past issues and past developments, but I don't ever remember there being any controversy over one of these. I mean, typically they just sign them, I think, but Joe might know that better than me.
We have used it, for many developments, even the small developments like Casey's or the Dollar General or those types of things. The documents come in and, we'll review them, but essentially that document allows you to get reimbursed for the costs that you expend to facilitate their development.
I guess one of my biggest concerns is this is the
We
first
have a
one.
motion on this one yet, or?
Yeah, we should, we have some good discussion, but before we start, I'll make a motion. We approve the security agreement, cost reimbursement and security agreement for Gold Rush Crossing. So with that, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Three?
Yep.
Okay.
One of my concerns, this one's coming to council and previous ones haven't come to council. They were just signed without council knowing about it and it coming in later. That's how we found out about the one over at
You come to Gold Rush?
Robinson, I
Yeah.
believe it was.
Yeah, no, I want to protect the city. There's no question about that. I think that we're getting the cart before the horse in this because we haven't gone through an annexation agreement, which is the number one thing that we have to do first. And there's got to be a public hearing after the annexation agreement. And then from there, moving forward. And I know that right now we're under a lawsuit for another one that was questioning some of the fees that were there for reviewing some of your stuff for 40 hours and different things that way. And I think that's still an issue that's there. And so I'm very concerned about doing this. We're just moving ahead of where it needs to be. I think we've got to do the annexation and the public hearing first before we even get into this.
Well, and I mean, I don't disagree with what Jim is saying there, but the problem is the developer is disagreeing with what Jim is saying. So what we've kind of told them uniformly, and Jason can speak to this because he wrote them an email back in August that explicitly said what Jim just said, basically. And they're not taking it. They're not having it. They want to negotiate everything out of order, and they want a guarantee as to what their costs are going to be before the annex, which is difficult. And this kind of opens up a can of worms here. Yet they're demanding that we negotiate on costs related to the development agreement now. And so that's why we're bringing it now. I mean, if you don't want to adopt it, I mean, it's fine with me. It just, when we spend time on it, we're going to bill you and Joe will bill you and they might never agree to this. So I guess, I mean, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree. You're right. The annexation should happen first, but they're not willing to do that.
Well, it's-
One idea is we could just tell them we're not going to meet with you or spend more time on this until you file an annexation petition. I think if we do that, they won't file an annexation petition, and that might be where it is. So, this all kind of came out at the last meeting. Sort of their expectations are different than your expectations and my expectations, I guess.
I was just personally, I wasn't real happy with the discussion that happened last month. I think that it was not a good conversation that there was back and forth, especially with their engineer and that firm, which I think is a reputable firm that there is in the Rochester area. And looking at what they were looking at too, was they've got their firm doing most all the engineering work that there is behind it, not using Joe and Stantec. So there's so many things that are at play here. And so just, I think we've got to do it step by step and follow the right order, which is number one, the annexation agreement. Number two is going to be the zoning change that needs to take it after that, which means it's got to go through P and Z before it turns around and comes to the council. So I think that those things, if given that case, could be done, and this could be coming next month. And which way it's done, I think the correct way, instead of doing it the other way. And again, I'm want to protect the city without a doubt of what goes on, and I don't want to have us spend money. I just want to do it the correct way, and this is not the correct way.
So just for everybody's information, one of the things that the developer wants to do is they're concerned about annexing the property without understanding if zoning modifications would be accepted. And so at times, those things can be done essentially concurrently, which provides some relief, I guess, or reassurance for the developer. And so that is one option, but in order to, pursue zoning modifications that in conjunction with an annexation application, there's.
No, and I understand that,
So
and if you read it real simple, the annexation agreement is straightforward.
It is.
And you don't want to change anything in that annexation agreement, at all, okay? Because it's null and void on what's going on, and that agreement's good till 2035. So looking at that, and again, we can't officially say anything. We know that there's a prior precedent that was set for what there is on their question of the zoning, which goes to what's going on over with Glenn's Motor Coach, okay? And so that takes care of it, but we still have to follow the correct process, and I think we're getting ahead of it. You're looking at 30 days, whatever that there is off of this, the rest of that can move quick enough. I know after they sign the annexation agreement, there's 10 days before they turn around, we have the public hearing. So all those things could be done, and we could be looking at this next month, which I think is the correct way to do it.
I guess I don't understand why this would be part of the development agreement all in all. Why would have separate agreement? Because, if we're talking 40 hours of your time, Joe, that's gonna cover much of the time you'll spend in.
Well, no, I was just
doing
saying
it.
that was in the last
No, I
issue that we're dealing
understand
with
that.
was that fee that was put for 40 hours. But I don't know.
So I guess with that in mind, well, go ahead, Joe. I didn't mean to
You're not
talk over
gonna
you.
do anything outside of, the township's never gonna let them develop that out there with the city having city services.
Like I'm
That's
saying.
never gonna happen.
No, I understand that too, okay, and I'm not saying one way or another, I would just like to follow the correct procedures that we have to do. And the annexation's gotta come first before we turn around in the public hearing, before we get into this and see what goes on, so. That's that's my feelings that there is behind it.
There even a possibility that they can go through the steps that they need to go through to get to this point before our next meeting?
I think so,
They were to-
because if you're looking, they can sign the annexation agreement.
Sure.
And then it's 10 days after that to have a public hearing. Okay, and that public hearing could be with us or without us, but I mean, it'd be a public hearing that would be a part of it. And then once that's approved on the public hearing, then we could go and it would be ready to do this next month or whatever else it would be.
I'm just, what I'm getting at is would us not looking at approving this today end up being a roadblock for before next meeting?
No.
That this will have to be done before or after the annexation anyway, we'll have to bring it back, right?
Right.
And it being pretty standard, I mean, it's in our fee schedule, this is pretty standard. I get what you're saying, that it's kind of out of order and that, I get that, but, I don't want it to become a roadblock. If this can, if we can have it in place, they get their other stuff done, and then they can effectively jump over this part to the next step before March meeting.
Well, the thing is the fee schedule's been there for them to look at. Nobody's restricted them from looking at that.
Yes.
You know, they might need some explanation for the numbers, what the numbers and what they're actually talking about putting up there for buildings and stuff. So it's kind of like,
Well,
it
and
needs to come
again-
to the city to do it, and I would think this would be part of the development agreement. Anyway,
I think there was confusion even on the last meeting of like, what's the next step and what, like, is their responsibility? This outlines what that would look like to continue to move. I get that it's out of order, but I also want to make sure that we're not left holding the bill to make this work for them. We want to look at making it work for Orinoco. And this puts a little bit of accountability for them to come to the table maybe differently than they have in the past.
I understand your comment, and it's a good comment that there is behind it. I just, the annexation is such a key part that there is, that goes along, and no money is being spent by the city at this point. Having a meeting is the same thing that they had with a meeting with Cedar Woodlands 3 or whatever else that it is. That's part of what we do with the city, you know, to have that next meeting. It's not where, you know, Joe is gonna be putting any money that there is behind anything on reviewing anything that there is until the total, you know, contract comes together. I want to have it done the correct way. That's all.
So I guess I don't disagree again with what Jim is saying. But we, like he said, they have a reputable engineer. Jason's written them a email explaining annexation is the first step that has to happen. I mean, I don't think anybody, it seems like, disagrees on that point. It's just, well, they disagree on that point. You know, they're kind of forcing us to negotiate the development agreement now. And so I guess if the council doesn't want to adopt this tonight and wants to wait a month, let's say, so that we can have our meeting with them, I guess, you know, maybe it's good to have some direction for Jason to have some direction as to what the council expects then. You know, we're going to meet with them. They want to talk about fees in the development agreement. They have not yet petitioned for annexation. You know, anything that we tell them is obviously subject to council approval, just like anything else. So I don't mind meeting with them. I guess if we don't have this cost security agreement, the council just has to understand then that, you know, that one meeting that we're going to take with them next week, let's say it's a 2-hour meeting that, you know, I guess we'll do that and it won't necessarily get reimbursement for it. So that's fine. I mean, that's the council's choice if they want to do this now. Now, like I said, the first thing I said was they probably won't sign this anyway. So, you know, based on the tenor of the last meeting, I'm not sure they're going to agree to pay any costs. So I don't really know where they're at this point.
if that's the case, this is probably a moot discussion anyway.
Right.
That's right. So
I think we're talking in circles
let's
there.
table it till next month and then we're all set and everybody's good from there.
I'd just like to point out, we're already spending expenses with Mike and Joe working on this project with them, so it's not that it isn't costing us anything. It's already costing us stuff working with this, so it is up to you folks, council members, to do what you want. I would caution tabling it, but it would be nice to be able to bring this to them and go, hey, this is what council has approved. Let's work on something, and maybe we can get them to work on this. But
Oh, I guess my concern is not the meeting next week. That's just one meeting.
Yep.
My concern is if they want me to start drafting a draft development agreement and they want Joe to start reviewing that before they've annexed the property, which I agree with Jim is out of order. It's just out of order. No, out of order, like out of line, out of order in the wrong order, I think.
Yeah.
Right, the wrong. It's like if this is a manual, they're going to step 2 before they've done step 1. I mean, I hesitate to really negotiate much with them. If that's the council's position, we need to tell them that, I think. It's because otherwise we're going to get into this negotiating with them. It's just an oddity. That meeting was an odd one, and this is odd. So.
Yeah, I just want to get it back on the right track that there is, and that's the right way. Trying to turn around, especially the way that last meeting went, which I thought was not good. Trying to say, okay, we've got this, we got the council, we're gonna use this to, hit you over the head with it, is not the right way to go for having somebody become a part of the city. And I wanted to have it that they feel that it's a good decision for them to become a part of the city, not by force, but by want and desire, and us to move ahead that way with them. I think it's a smart way to go. That last meeting was terrible, and I'll just leave it at that.
I think we do need to follow process though for all versus like different pathways for some. And if this is a standard template, we have it in our fee schedule. I don't know why it would be such a big issue, understanding they might not want to pay it, but this is the cost of developing in Orinoco.
But the only thing is we've
So,
never
one-
annexed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
One, at a time, please.
We never annexed before.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the first that we're doing this, okay? Well, what else have we annexed?
River Bend Estates,
Okay,
35.
Riverwood Hills,
okay. Well, that was before mine. I was just thinking since what we've been doing with
River
this
Park,
that way.
Cedar Woodlands.
So I think too that, I didn't mean.
No,
anything
go
else.
ahead.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's, and you mentioned it's been talked about, I think the city has tried to work with the developer, and I think and we heard at the last meeting, that I think both parties want to make it work. And what the other party is saying, we don't want to do this, we want a development agreement up first, which is very, very unique. We've never done that before. We've always gone through the process of annexing and then having a development agreement, the drawings come in, Joe does his thing, and legal services and Phil too. So it's rather unique that we're doing it this way, but we are talking about having a meeting next week, and I don't know what's going to come out of that meeting, but no doubt it's going to raise more expenses or result in more expenses from both engineering and also more importantly, from Mike, if that's what the ultimate development agreement has to be worked out. But doing a development agreement before annex, there's no way to cover any of our city's costs. And we talk about we're protecting the taxpayer. Well, this protects the taxpayer. This is upfront money. It's not city money. But at the same time, because we've had other projects like this where we didn't have a security agreement. And I don't remember exactly what project it was, but we ended up having a $12,000 bill from Stantec because everything kept changing. We had to go back to planning and services and more, but it's unfortunate we didn't have a security agreement for that. It wasn't a development, but it was a development or some sort. It wasn't an annex, I know that, but. So I just feel like this is really, it's part of the process in working with this developer. Nobody's saying we don't want to do this. But if we want to work with a developer, the city needs a security agreement to cover our cost. Otherwise, taxpayers are paying for that cost. And it could still go south. We don't know that. But this protects us. It gives the developer an opportunity that they want to work with us, which I know they do, and they want to. here's a 10,000 escrow account. It's held in place. Nobody's using it, engineering or administrations or legal's not using it until we start working specifically on that project. And I think it's key to our taxpayers that we do this.
And I'm in agreement with that, Ryland. I'm not questioning that, and I want to protect the taxpayers. There's no question about it. But we're taking money on a property that's not part of the city, and it's got to go through annexation first before it becomes a part of the city. And there's not going to be any money spent by Joe because there's no engineering work that Joe's going to do on anything. All it's going to be is a matter of you guys having the meeting next week and figure out what's going on.
That's the point I think you missed, is that Joe and Mike are working on this.
There's
they're
no,
working for it.
there's nothing for Joe to do. There's no.
They're working on a proposal of how they can work and accommodate the developer.
There's nothing to do until after the annexation takes place. That's what I'm saying.
We hope that would have started November 19th, but it didn't.
And
So
why,
here we are,
I don't know.
wanting to work with the
You know,
developer,
so,
and we're just trying to prevent and support our taxpayers by not having them share the burden of that expense.
you know, I think that some of this stuff, especially if you're gonna have a meeting and with Mike and with Joe is part of what the city does. Okay, we don't have anybody that comes in and I mean, there's other meetings that take place and you know that between the two. So we're not looking at that much money that we're really talking about. I just want to do it the right way. Like I said, I want to protect the citizens. I'm not going against that. It's the wrong order for what there is, the way we need to do this.
So could we package it up? You need to do the annexation, but know that this is coming after, that there'll be a $10,000.
You can do that, but I'm not gonna sign it that there is, because the annexation's gotta go through, and it's gotta go through the public hearing. It's gotta be done first before we get into this, you know? I mean, if we need to have a special meeting that there is to come together after that, if it's not, I think it's all gonna happen within the 30 days and it's gonna be fine. I just think we'll have more information on what to do at that time.
The annexation will be fine if they petition for annexation. Because we have an orderly annexation agreement in place I spoke with the township person after the last meeting. She said that I was 100% right about my analysis of it. I think we're completely of the same mind. Me and the township people are, at least. But we still can't initiate it till they sign a petition, and they want certain financial promises before they do that. My big thing with it is I don't think the city council should pre-promise a rezoning before you've held the public hearing.
And we haven't.
Correct.
We're very, very careful.
Correct. But I also think the development agreement doesn't require a public hearing. So we could negotiate that. My bigger concern is that we don't really have the facts we need to negotiate it. You know, we don't have development plans. We don't have a preliminary plat. We don't have, drainage reports. We don't, we don't have anything. So
yeah, but we don't know what they've done off of that either, Mike. Okay, and they have a lot of that stuff because it's their engineering, not using Joe, or Stantec when it comes to that. It's still, before you can turn around and do the zoning, it's got to go through our planning and zoning committee first before we can turn around and do that. So there's steps that have to be done. Okay, I just say let's do the steps and then we'll come back and have this ready hopefully next month this time.
So if the council goes in that direction, we'll meet with them. We'll kind of get where they're at, I guess. And then we'll write something to the council so before the meeting what happened at the meeting. And it might not be that they petitioned for annexation. So before they pre-negotiated all the terms of their eventual development, which if you want to tell them we're just not going to do that because that's not the right process, we can tell them that. But I'm not going to tell them that on your behalf unless you tell me to do that. But I just don't think I think their mindset is they want to know the whole story before. They don't want to do it one thing at a time. So, and I agree that is difficult. We're doing one in Plainview right now. The very first thing they did was petition for annexation. We've got the public hearing on February 27th, and they're doing a big industrial park development, but we haven't even discussed the development agreement. It's all about the annexation to get that approved. And by the way, even when you approve an orderly annexation agreement, the annexation is not approved yet. It's
Right.
gotta go to, it's gotta go to the state and they, I mean, the way I was looking at it, I mean, it could be 30 days or more before they even issue an order, so. But if you, so and we're fine, I'm fine doing it. It doesn't, to me, it's, if they're gonna move forward with the development, you wanna make sure that you're recouping your fees.
And I agree with that. I'm not trying to lose fees at all. I don't want to cost the city anything. I want the city to gain by having them be there. You know, I just want to do it the right way, so especially after the last meeting, everything got off on the wrong foot. I'd much rather have it get off and do things on the right foot moving forward. So we've got that.
Mayor? Okay.
And I think that's what the city's doing. I'm sorry, Jason.
Oh, I was gonna say, when,
I think that's what the city's doing, you know, at the last meeting, we heard, let's work together.
I didn't hear it as a really work together. There were some really harsh words. And there were some letters
Take
that,
away from the very last part of the meeting.
I just, it was, there are a lot of people that watched it online that weren't happy with it too, and I don't want to go any further other than you've heard my comments on it.
We're not
Yeah.
discussing last week's. meeting.
No, I'm not,
But
so,
the point is, it ended on a positive note. That was my takeaway from what the realtor said, and I think that's what Mike said, and let's make this happen. And I think that's important, but I think at the same time, because of the circumstances of wanting to work together, and we're going outside the system by having this discussion next week between us and the developer. Here's what we can offer, or whatever, I don't know what they're talking about, but the point was, there's going to be a discussion about it, and we don't know where that discussion is going. Hopefully it brings more together and we move forward, but and we could go through the annexation agreement, but there's no guarantee they're gonna agree to the security
well,
agreement.
and again, I think it's better for you to have an understanding with them as you go through this, okay? I understand this, and again, it came back with the last one that's still in the lawsuit that there is on questions on different things on fees that there are, so it might be pretty simple of what there is off of this, but I think that there's more things that fit. So you can tell them next week in the meeting that it's gonna be the $10,000. This is what's going on. This is the direction that it goes. This is what we need as a city to do that and let them know that that's the case. I just want to follow them to get there so that they turn around and do the annexation agreement and the public hearing. And we get the planning and zoning, which all fits within the 30 days for us to be able to come back to council with the recommendation and the approval of what it might be on how we're doing with the zoning, which is, I think, the proper way to do it.
I think that's what we're voting on though, right? Is to be able to present this to them and say, this is our council's
Well, you can-
expectations.
Yeah,
Whether
I
they
just-
sign it or not is arbitrary. It won't be executed until they sign it. I understand
Well,
that it's not necessarily in order, but they've been asking for
Well, they-
something.
and they've known that for a long period of time. It's
Oh,
just
that's
that's
a weird
that's why I'm saying everything is not the way we like to have it. I'd like to get it back on track so that they see that we're as a city working with them as well and inviting them to come in because it's great for us. The tax base, what we're gonna get out of this is gonna be fantastic for the growth of the city. You know, so.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, this is something, it was brought to council to have ready, to have in our pocket for the city to present to them. It isn't the next step in the process. It's for us to say, hey, when it comes time, we've got this ready to go because they want to get the ball rolling with stuff and I don't want to have to continually wait for the next month or the next month. If we have a CSA that we can say, okay, we've gone through annexation, here's the next step, this is this, and we can give it to them early to start looking at, to start negotiating. That way it's done and ready to go. This isn't this is gonna happen and we're gonna send it to them tomorrow and say, you must do this or else nothing else. This is to have in our pocket to be able to present to them when the time is right.
Well, and again, you can present it to them without our signature on it because this is what we're gonna be signing off anyway, so they know what's going on. But I think that we've got to go through the proper steps the right way. I really do.
Well, if I heard Ryland say it right, he sounded like he was concerned that he wanted this done before the annexation agreement.
You can't.
Well, that's what
or
That's what,
whenever the annexation agreement occurs.
if he wanted this in place beforehand, is it because you can't do this afterward or?
You can do it
No,
afterwards.
just a second.
Yeah.
Ryland's.
Well, it's all- In my mind, it's all part of sharing with them, and maybe what Jason is saying is this is what we have that we need to work together on, because it will be necessary to have a security agreement.
Mhm. And I agree with that, but you can talk to them about it. I just,
The risk is, my risk is, the risk I see is that they could say, no, city, you gotta foot all the costs.
well, if it comes to that, then maybe we should say that we won't accept the annexation agreement before they do it. Again, that's a discussion that there is between the developer and what there is, with what comes back to council.
Well,
We don't have that here. We've got something you can say, this is where we're going with it, that this is what you're gonna have to be doing, and I think being more concrete. But looking at the timing, just by the time they would do it and file the annexation agreement and turn around and have the public hearing, we've got to go through those steps, and it's got to go to planning and zoning next month anyway, or if we have to have a special meeting before it turns around and comes back to council. But time-wise, it's gonna take that time to do it, so I'd like to wait till next month on this.
well, I think that's, I guess I'd like to offer amendment to my motion. And it's up for discussion, of course, but I think I would change my motion to say it's pending the annexation agreement, that the security agreement will be signed.
And
Present the draft here and share with them the party that says the security agreement's in place. We have a copy of it. The council has moved that the security agreement will be signed and approved pending the annexation.
we also have to go through a zoning change too. Because that was a big thing that there had, because
Well,
you've
when
only
we do
got.
zoning changes, this gets into where security agreements is going to help with Stantec planning services.
Well, there is no services that are involved with changing the zoning, because we've already got a precedent that's already in place with that. So there is nothing else that needs to be done through Stantec.
We'll go to Stantec asking for their
No,
response.
we don't need to, well, we can find the facts if there is, but I mean,
PNC always does.
well, most of the
And
time.
here we have the security agreement in place after the annexation has been approved.
Well, they put in a permit for that to be able to do that, and the money that comes for the permit pays for the Stantec. Because you have to put in a permit to have a zoning change.
Question the amount of that happening, but
I think what I took away from last month's meeting was they wanted to understand what implications would be on them, right? And what the next steps are, which we outlined, but they also wanted to know financially what that would look like. This, to me, calls out that we need to follow the steps, but there is an upfront cost of this to continue to work, and it safeguards us as a town so that we're not holding the bills for Mike and Joe if they decide that they don't want to do it. I don't know if this is gonna, I mean, maybe it is a deal breaker for them, but to me, it's pretty standard. We should be doing that for everybody. And I don't know why we would change it for them. I mean, it's been out of order since November or whenever they started. So I think having some documentation to help support that and get them on the right track, I don't think is gonna hurt in this situation.
Let's put it to a vote. Move it along.
I'll accept your amendment.
What's that?
Do we need to accept your amendment?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay.
sure,
So,
second, Joe.
second, amendment.
Okay, so the motion we have is that the house security agreement will be put in place. When the annexation agreement is submitted.
You also have to have the public hearing too, that there is to go along with it.
They put the annexation agreement.
You've got to go
When they
through those
request
processes.
grant. Oh, and they apply for annexation.
But do it after annexation and public hearing, they're gonna happen within the
Be upon acceptance of the annexation, right? That,
You're after the public hearing, yeah,
right, it'd be upon acceptance of the annexation that cost security agreement.
pending the agreement, okay.
And for zoning after it goes through planning and zoning. For the
Well,
zoning change.
that all has to do,
Well,
well, she's
the
bringing it into the
annexation
city.
agreement is not approved, there won't be any zoning.
No.
So we have the
So I would say
motion.
it's, the security agreement would come in place pending the approval of the annexation agreement after the public hearing. So the annexation agreement is in place before it goes to zoning. Joe?
So from my perspective, what I usually see, and Mike can chime in here too, is a developer will apply for annexation. But developers want to move fast and they're going to want to do things concurrently. And so at the same time they've applied for annexation and started that process, they're also going to be making applications for modification of the future land use plan, modification of zoning. They're gonna be asking questions about utility service and turn lanes and what's gonna be required and what the fees are. And they're gonna wanna start that process on multiple fronts because time is money for developers and they wanna always move as fast as they can. So if we comply and respond to the developer and start to answer those questions and review things concurrently to facilitate their development process, because typically that's what we want to do. We want to move things along as fast as we can and work with people. If we do that, you're going to incur costs. And so if you incur costs without executing the agreement, you are taking on risk. Maybe the development agreement, or maybe the development moves forward, the ultimate development agreement gets executed, those costs get rolled into that. But there are instances where things get hung up and maybe the annexation goes forward, but like I said, the variances don't get granted or the rezoning doesn't get granted or whatever happens, things get hung up and you're left holding costs then. So this is, again, it's just a mechanism to facilitate recovering your costs. If you're comfortable, assuming some risk on the front end to facilitate development and, be a responsive partner to the developer, they'll like that because, that's less cost out of their pocket. And, maybe in certain circumstances that's a good move for the city. That's up to you guys to decide that.
And I understand, and I understand all those things. The costs that are associated, Joe, they're not using Stantec, they're gonna be using their, engineering company that there is, that's a part of that. And they were also gonna be putting up a bond, so it's gonna take care of a lot of the stuff that there is, from what my understanding was too.
Well, a couple
So,
things.
And again, that could be getting deeper than where we wanna go with what we're talking about with this stuff, okay? But I don't think you're gonna have costs that are gonna be associated over the next 30 days, basically. Could be minimal for an hour meeting, or
Well,
maybe a 2-hour meeting. But other than that, the rest of it has to go through the annexation, the public hearing, and work its way through. You're going from step A to step D, okay? And I know that developers wanna move fast, there's no question. But it's 20 below zero last night, and you're not gonna be out moving land over this time, over the next 30 days.
they're certainly not. You're right, it's cold out, but developments take time. Months and months and months. And
And again, I'm not disputing that. I'm saying I wanted to wait to get all the stuff that there is together.
Well, the thing of it is, Mike's concern was that they probably weren't gonna sign, the chance they wouldn't sign it anyway, so.
Well, yeah,
He says they're gonna sign it after they get the annexation anyway. So it's.
so it just depends, Paul, on what they say during the meeting. So essentially, if you put this off 30 days and you table this until next month, what'll happen is we'll meet with them next week. we'll just incur the cost for that one meeting. We'll discuss their project. If we can come to a general understanding between Jason, where Jason feels comfortable moving forward, we just won't be able to do more work until after the next month's meeting. Which is maybe fine. That's to me, that doesn't matter. I agree with Joe's comment. The whole conversation last month, it's just the opposite of what usually happens. It's the polar opposite. Typically, developers are racing to City Hall to submit their applications to do things as quickly as possible. And this developer has done the opposite of that and has submitted nothing. And so it's just an odd one, I guess. I'm fine if you wait, but any costs you incur is just a risk to the city, and that's fine. And maybe Jim's right. Maybe we'll just have this meeting and then that'll be the end of it. I haven't seen any development plans or plats or anything yet. But like Jim points out, maybe they'll show up with all that. Maybe they'll have put the time in and done that and bring it. I don't know. So it's fine. I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world if you approve this or don't approve it, to be honest with you. It's just a risk issue, So if you're willing to take whatever costs, from my perspective, I'm probably not going to start drafting the development agreement. I think what they want is just to negotiate in broad strokes the terms of the agreement from a financial standpoint so that they know how much money they're going to spend, without actually going to the nitty-gritty of me drafting it. There's problems with doing that, but they're not really on the agenda tonight. So yeah, I think it's fine, and I think they will sign this agreement if we can come to some general meeting of the minds as to what is going to happen moving forward. And I think as we stand today, they won't sign it, but after our meeting next week, they might. And if they change their mind, then we'll have to wait, 3 weeks basically to move anything forward, and that's 3 weeks. So
It would be, you still have to do the annexation and the public hearing, so nothing is gonna be wasted time-wise. If you go ahead with it next week, then you could move with the annexation agreement and the 10 days that it takes to turn around and publish it to be able to have the public hearing, off of that.
yeah, I think what Joe is saying is they're going to want to, once they agree to submit the petition for annexation, they submit their petition on Monday. They're going to want to start working on the development agreement on Tuesday, even though the annexation won't have yet been approved. And so what we're going to tell them then, if we don't approve this tonight, what we'll tell them is the council has directed us not to do that until the annexations, at least the public hearing is being held, or it's moved down the road a little bit, until the next council meeting, which is fine. I mean, we'll just have to tell them that, and they, like Joe is saying, they might not like that, but
Well, if we need to turn around and have a special meeting that there is, if that's such an issue that there is in stopping this, then we'll do that.
So Mike, is it your opinion that you will share a draft of the security agreement with them at your meeting next week?
I don't see why we wouldn't. I mean, it's just a draft, and we'll just have to, if you don't approve it tonight, we'll just tell them the council didn't approve it yet, but this is our draft agreement based on the fee schedule. And if you do approve it tonight, we'll tell them the council approved it. Here's our draft agreement with the fee schedule. Sign it if you're ready to sign it. And
Well, I think it's clear in
ultimate-
our discussions that we don't have a unanimous vote here, but at the same time, I think we need to step back, wait for your meeting next week. And the outcome of that meeting would maybe give the a little bit better perspective on how we're going to move forward. As long as the draft of the security agreement is in front of them, they haven't seen it, I don't believe, so far. So I do think they need to be aware of their cost to help pay with the planning and legal services. So I withdraw my motion. However, I withdraw my motion just from the standpoint of we want to see how negotiations continue on. And if there's very favorable, I think this should be part of the discussion, know that there will be a security agreement. And come back to council, we can have a special meeting to review this again, but I think that would be dependent on the takeaway from your meeting. Moving forward, so.
Mike, I got a question for Mike.
I'll agree with that and.
Is there a chance that we could,
Before I do that, made the motion or second.
I second it.
Okay. It's okay with your.
Yeah.
Second.
is there a chance that we could add into the annexation, into the request for annexation? That this would be, there'd be a line in there that refers to this, it'll be signed upon
No.
acceptance of the annexation?
No, the annexation agreement
No, I
is
understand
straight.
that.
You can't add anything to the annexation agreement. You can't put anything else
I'm
in
not
it.
talking about township.
Okay.
I'm talking about anybody applying for annexation with the city. They apply at the city level.
In conjunction with the application.
Right. With the application, it could be on the application that they agree to sign this at that point. That way they're obligated to sign at that point.
Based off of our fee schedule that's published too, so it's, all the information's right there. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, there's 45.
bring that back next month for sure, if not before, so.
Mayor, I'm gonna log off. Jason told me that's the only issue for me tonight, so,
Okay, thank you, Mike.
okay.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mike.
good night, guys.
You need
Thanks,
a
Mike.
motion to table that then, or?
Yeah, until next week.
Make a motion to table that, cost reimbursement security agreement for Golden Rush Crossing until next month.
Second then. Motion to table this discussion till next month. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's approved. If something should come up before next meeting, we can of course have a special meeting. Through departments and committees, we have, updates in the minutes, the consent agenda.
Got our sheriff here.
And
Our sheriff's back here, so we let him go.
you have anything to share with us or any questions for?
Been cold and not a lot of activity.
It looked that way on the report. It looked like it was pretty good this last month. That's good. I like that.
All right, planning and zoning. I'm sorry.
There we're at. Let me see where we're at here. The planning and zoning,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, fire department is what I meant to say.
you have water and sewer. We're gonna do that one, public works, or?
Just an FYI, there's no discussion. We talk about it at the fees later on.
Okay, public works, we're okay on everything with that. Okay, water and sewer. Planning and zoning, we had a short meeting that there was this last Tuesday, and sorry, we didn't have the key to get in for our code on that, so I apologize. It's not online. So that's it, but there was nothing that was really happening a lot, except for the exception of we have an applicant that has gone through the process of planning and zoning and was unanimously accepted as a applicant for a vacant position. There's gonna be two positions. There'll still be a position open after this, but we recommend Grant Kosher to turn around and become part of planning and zoning. So I make a motion to approve him for member for planning and zoning.
All got there first.
I think it's a great add to planning and zoning, so. Any other comments? Grant has been sitting in on EDA and P and Z, and so I think he's got a pretty good grasp for what's ahead of us and what has been done, so. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. You also had some promotions or changes, duties.
I didn't offer that one. Wendy has resigned, just so that you know that. She was co-chair that there was for planning and zoning.
Who's that, sorry?
Wendy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so that position is open right now. Okay, so,
Uh,
And Kathy's as well.
no, Kathy's on.
He's got to reapply.
Oh, okay. I'll let her-
We have our application here.
You got her application?
Yeah, that was attached to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Nope, it's here and just,
Okay.
it's still on here and.
Oh, yeah, I see it on there. Okay. Yeah,
Well, let's,
you got both of them on there then.
Where's the second page for both of these?
I was tabling as I'm going together. If I've missed the other page, I apologize. Oh, here's the one, no, it's,
I'll just need
I'll
to
get
get
the
their
other one for you.
applications
okay.
to have on file.
Yeah, I'll get them for you. Well,
We need to reapprove Kathy though, right?
yeah, we approve Kathy.
Reapprove Kathy and
To be running for chair again.
oh, we'll add Kathy to the motion
Yeah, to approve her for chair.
for a 3-year term, okay.
She's good. Got a lot of experience that there is with township. She's excellent to have in there.
She was on township before.
Well, for a lot of years, she was on planning and zoning with township, so.
All right, any other comments for those two appointments? None, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's approved. Congratulations. Thanks, Grant.
thanks. Yeah.
Great. Your other fire department,
Yeah,
that's,
in our meeting that we had this last Monday, there were, nominations and approvals of 2 captains, Taylor Armstrong and Kent Johnson, and also for the safety officer, Caleb Timmerman. So I make a motion to note those. They're already on the department, so I don't know if we need to approve that, but at least make that known that those are their positions that they have, and it was unanimous vote on all of those. The other thing that there was of interest with the fire hall too, and I've kind of had a conversation with Kane as well. There was an issue with some snow that wasn't removed after the last snowfall in front of the fire hall. And I don't know if we need to have our regular fire people or regular snow removal people plow through that and do that in front, but somehow we've got to make sure that we don't have snow in front of the fire hall in case of emergencies and that are going on, so whether it's part of the city or whatever. And
So
Kane said,
you're adding stuff to the agenda that wasn't,
well, it was a part of,
This is fire
it's
department.
part of fire department.
Fire department.
the updates are just, if we're gonna put items on the agenda that need discussion, we should put them on the agenda. Says update is just an update. If you want action or something like that, then we should put that on the agenda. Okay. Or have a conversation with Kane.
Kane and I had a conversation, so. I think we gotta.
That's just in
I
the
think
fire
that's
meeting
important.
minutes. Is that, you're just letting us know that was in the fire meeting minutes?
It should be, they brought that to my attention that wasn't plowed and took pictures of it and we've got to find somebody to keep that. So somebody has a heart attack or whatever, I think we want to have that snow removed from there.
Ian, how many inches did we have on that day?
1 inch.
With a drift over on top of it with the I've got the pictures, so.
So if anyone's unhappy with the snow removal that my team does, or when we show up, or when we escalate on after hours or weekends, we should have that conversation. I don't know who here wants to have that conversation, but that conversation has not happened. So it is under my discretion to show up when I feel like there's an issue or an amount that requires removal. It was 1 inch and we did not show up.
With all due respect, Kane, I did call and talk to you, just so you know, I did have that discussion with you. With all due respect, I did have that discussion with you.
Right, but you're just one council member. I can't take direction from
No,
just one of you.
that's why I was bringing it up for just discussion here, okay? With the rest of the council.
It wasn't on the agenda, enough is said. Next time, make sure it gets put on the agenda or take care of it outside of the council. We have
Okay, move on.
All right, so we have, got a motion for the approval of the fire department appointees. Correct?
Mhm.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Fire relief first responders, update on economic development, those copies are in your consent agenda, same with parks and trails. We're down to state administrator. His report is in the packet. Any comments or Jason, would you like to share any additional comments?
Self-explanatory.
I'm sorry.
That's all in there, pretty self-explanatory, busy.
Next item is our resolution 2025-04. 2025 fee schedule. Jason has spent a lot of time on this. And I'm sure everybody's had the opportunity to look at the fee schedule. And with that, I would make a motion we approve, before we start the discussion, I'll make a motion we approve resolution 2025-04. Second,
Again,
Daniel, thank you.
for discussion, I believe that we took animal licenses out a few years ago. And we had talked about removing the camping fees just to avoid any confusion on whether or not we were actually using camping or not. I would still like to see animal licenses removed and the camping removed specifically.
And on this, I agree with that, on what you're saying on that one, Daniel. What about the dog kennel license?
We only have one dog kennel in town, right?
Yeah, and it's under conditional use permit off of that, so I don't know why we should,
Why he would need a license.
I don't think we need a license for that. So I kind of wonder about that. I was working with the fire department on fire calls. And there's some confusion about this, especially when you get fire call. When you call it as a car or a grass, these guys get called, and especially even fire standby use rate. I think that we should take, fire call exceeding 2 hours out and trying to charge people at $100 an hour, or for a fire call for a car, $200. And standby emergency, we have a reciprocal rate that there, or call thing that there is between Pine Island, Pine Island, Rochester, Winnebago, Plainview, Wanamingo. So I mean, those, we don't charge those people back and forth, so I think those charges should all be removed.
So which one specifically? Sorry.
Specifically, I'll take out the fire call exceeding 2 hours. Okay, the fire call, car, or grass, and the fire standby emergency rate. And I was wondering also, on the gambling license event, we've only had that happen once. And there was $100 for the little ducks that were floating down the river. I don't know if we want to have that gambling license event for $100 if it's worthwhile or not. I think we're kind of hitting against ourselves in the fire department by charging them $100 for that.
The reason we've had that for the Gold Rush is because the gambling license at the fire department doesn't cover outside the premises. So that's why we had that.
Well, it wasn't in the 2024 fee.
I don't know if it was or not, but that was.
It's not according to what's on here, the paper.
No, this was all done up to be more inclusive because our fee schedule, quite frankly, is lacking in a lot of areas. So
Is there a way to make the fire department's gambling license inclusive of events like the duck?
Comes from the state, so.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah, then that's
necessarily
fine.
us that dictate it.
Do we
I would
really
pay-
need to increase the pull tab license from $100 to $200? That's taken away from the fire department too.
So these numbers, I looked at approximately 30 different cities and kind of averaged the costs out of stuff that I was finding from different cities across the state. Do what you want to with it. These are just recommendations.
No, I'm just
So,
kind of looking at the size of the cities. If you went through 30, what was the populations to compare that to? 'Cause
I just took whatever I could find online.
yeah, I think
Most of them were
$100,
smaller.
keeping it the same as what we had last year would make sense.
Increase the golf cart license at $10.
Yeah.
Do we have, so the fire department is paying for a license to do the pull tabs, to put those into Tilly's, I'm assuming. But then Tilly's is also paying for their electronic? Like,
It all comes
or is that
through,
all fire?
all fire.
So,
I think that's just a one-time pull tab
Okay.
license too, not
and
every
that
year.
comes from the fire.
It's every
The,
year.
the fire department has to
Not
pay,
every-
but
I see. It's every year.
There's just one gambling license that the Relief Association holds.
so, yeah, I just like to keep that as $100 instead of 200 because
Everybody okay with $100?
I'm
Yep.
okay with it.
I just wasn't sure who would paying for it, whether it's Tilly's paying for it or if it's the fire.
Tilly's doesn't pay for very
Yeah,
much.
okay. I see that.
We pay for rent over there. We pay for a lot of stuff that there is. Asphalt patching.
Before we leave that page,
Okay.
Put the golf cart back to $10. Well, we're on that page.
so we
Snowmobile permit fees.
talked about, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The golf cart snowmobile fee. Why do we need to raise that 200%? And why can't that say $10 a year?
Because we're behind the times. That's why these are adjusted.
Well, that's why they're all adjusted, so we're behind the time.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know, that's why they were all adjusted, because
I'd like to put that back to $10.
So what I heard was that remove the animal license
Camping.
and the duplicate, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Change the golf cart to 30 to 10.
Chicken license.
We have
just had
chicken
someone
ordinance.
come and get one of those.
Huh?
We just had someone come and get one of those last week.
Yeah, you can rent your chickens now.
We have a chicken ordinance.
I know, but I didn't know we had to have a fee that went along with it.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. There's a.
So
With egg
You're gonna have
Chicken.
more with the price of eggs.
Yeah, right. Still cheaper to have chickens.
Jim, you were saying you wanted to remove all 3 fire calls
Yeah,
except the one?
yeah, the one and on that, because I was talking to Johan about that, and Kane, you might be able to help too. If it's a fire call, that the house is burning, doesn't, our insurance pay for that? Kane?
Yeah, and your car insurance would pay for your car too, and your homeowners would probably pay for your grass on fire, so.
Mine probably wouldn't with my deductible.
So the fire call, we're talking city or township?
City.
Well, fire, we don't do this
We don't do
township.
the township on fire, only city.
Fire would be for standby or call.
I don't have an issue
No,
with the firefighters charging for their services. I think that's something that.
No, I'm just saying your homeowners would normally pay for that for our house.
Right.
No, the
And
homeowner,
I guess that's kind of what I was following with Rochester, because I was asking what Rochester did with that.
well, like you said, your deductible wouldn't cover it, but isn't that what we're paying taxes for? I seen the fire department budget. Yeah.
I don't have any problem on a regular call if a house is burning to do that.
So you would keep the first one?
Yeah.
You would just take the exceed 2 hour and the car grass.
Yeah.
Take the 3 extras off, so he's talking about.
So the car and the grass would be a cheaper charge than just a straight fire call.
Well, the reason why I say that is sometimes the fire department gets called out on 52. And so that's called out for a car. and you don't know what it is, that's what a part of it, you
I
know,
don't
so.
think we can bill if they're on 52. Like, cause they're gonna be the primary responder, right?
It's
They're,
reciprocal and that they'll turn around and they'll have backups if they get the calls that come in. I mean, and I could be, I would
They
just,
can bill it, but like if my truck's sitting in my driveway and catches on fire, that's gonna be at that point, it would just be a fire call at $400,
right,
right? Instead of a car fire, which actually can be way worse, but at 200, so the exceeding hours, but that actually could be a relief for a homeowner who was doing a burn order, right? And they were burning and they needed assistance to put it back out.
Well, that's what the standby rate would be for.
no, but you don't want to have them there for standby, because they don't go out there when anybody's having a burn.
No,
Right,
but,
standby.
no, isn't that when you call them when you're burning?
But I'd much
No, you
prefer to
don't. You
get
just
charged
get a burn
$200 for the grass
You
than
don't you don't call
400.
them, you just get a burn permit, that's all.
Okay, so we'll take those three off. Leave the fire call for the city.
And then you're talking about the dog kennel license, right?
Yeah.
So with the fire call,
And then the pull tab license back to $100.
Jason was asking a question.
I'm sorry.
with the fire call, the base, it says 400 based on 2 hours, because that was presuming that anything exceeding 2 hours was gonna get billed additionally. Are we removing the based on 2 hours?
Yeah.
So it's just a flat $400 rate.
Yeah, I think if you get a fire call and there's, yeah, I think that makes sense.
So is it still based on 2 hours or just $400?
Just $400. for the fire call.
So remove the based on 2 hours.
So we're removing the base on 2 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was wondering,
The full tab license down
to
to
100.
100.
I had a question too on that, Jason. Let's see, where did I run that one at? You had dropped the liquor license temporary from 100 to $75. Is there a reason why you went down?
Because that was what the majority of the cities were at. We were actually overcharging. So some of these, most of these I think go up a little bit, but there are some that go down. Just, I was basing it off of what I was seeing.
That's for 1 to 4 days?
Yep.
And then the Sunday is a temporary by itself?
Yep.
What's the
Okay.
difference between the two food vendor permits?
Where are we at here?
You're right under the fire. They're two different,
One is up to 1 week and one is up to a year. So
Okay.
like if you have a food truck that sits at like Tilly's, they would, if they want to do a food truck, it would be a $250 permit for the year.
I wonder if we should name them different, like food truck yearly or something. Just so that when this is posted online, that it's clear.
Certainly can do that.
Change it to food truck permit?
Yearly.
Or yearly.
Yearly, I think it's a
For
good
the,
idea.
for the one that's per year.
I'll just put it afterwards, after the food truck permit, just put dash yearly.
Well, that's the way it's stated out here in the fee and.
Mhm. No, but just as it goes online, people will look at that.
Right, but you
Say
change
yearly.
change the word of it to food truck permit.
But yearly
The
food
yearly is
vendor
out.
permit.
Food vendor permit dash event, food vendor permit dash yearly.
Yeah, there you go.
I just think of like the home bakers or whatever, right? They're gonna wanna have a year permit to sell versus. a
1
event.
week ties in with their Gold Rush
Yeah, that's,
license that come in from.
Okay.
Okay, fine. All right, and then we have the full tab. Right, go to the next page. Whichever one you want.
the asphalt patching,
Public Works.
Where are we at? Which one?
it's on page 16.
Okay, and what department is it under?
Just approved city council,
Okay, public works.
service, public works.
Okay.
So if we call Public Works and there's a hole in the street out in front of us, we pay for the hole in the street at $300 for 20 square feet a minimum for patching? I don't know how that works.
And you wanna,
I would remove that.
Thank you.
asphalt
We're
patch,
not for hire.
I didn't think so.
Like this
That's-
whole section, like, right? Like putting in
What about street
mailboxes
signs? We
and
don't,
everything, right?
maybe that was put in just because of if anybody wants a patch of 10 feet by 2 feet wide.
So like,
but that wouldn't be for city work, so we would let them do it by contract.
Just a way to.
Sure, Jane say.
so
No
like
problem.
earlier this year, someone took out a stop sign. And there was an incident report with the sheriff's department. And we were able to charge the driver of the vehicle for that stop sign and the post, the labor. To put it back up.
So that would also, for asphalt patching, that could also be somebody brings an excavator, forgets to lift their bucket, runs down the city street. You could then charge them based off of repairs or?
Yep.
So would you still,
That would be to the company that you would do it, or are you talking about an individual that did that?
well, either.
Individual or-
If somebody damages the street, this is a
Well,
fee
this is
to
what
have
the
it
city's
repaired.
charging themselves.
Yeah, this isn't saying that we can call Kane and ask him to come repair, you know, my basketball court. This is, I would imagine this is more of a, if somebody does damage to city property, what we can charge them to have Kane fix it.
How often does that happen, Kate?
Well, wouldn't we just pass on the cost from the contractor?
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I'm thinking.
unless
It
it's
would
just an
be.
individual event, say you're unloading stuff, gravel for your yard, well, they drag stuff across the asphalt, tear up the asphalt. Not necessarily with big projects, just an individual event.
You're not patching
we ever
asphalt, is
had
what
that
you're
problem?
saying.
Have not.
We've had a lot of asphalt damage, but it's always been because of contractors during the sewer stuff.
Which is different, yeah.
But not to say that it won't happen.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was just put in because felt this area was lacking a lot, but do with it what you will.
What's the deal with the mailbox posts? Another place we got mailbox posts, the city put them in is the stuff down River Park, isn't it? Or the city put that in.
Individual
All over
people
the
that are
city, yeah.
responsible for that.
Right.
Homeowners are responsible.
Yeah, but why is the city getting $80 fee for?
Cause it's
Homeowner-
it was
for a homeowner
brought
to
in
put
as
it
a
up.
service possibility, cause I've heard council members mention, it'd be nice to find alternate sources of revenue. So I included some things for some alternate sources of revenue.
So for the city to install mailbox posts?
We have equipment,
Oh, yeah, he's got equipment to do that.
Yeah, we're limited equipment, limited resources, limited staff.
Kane's not
so-
excited about it.
the resources
I'm just saying
are.
it. I'll do whatever you guys say, but.
He said, let that page go, so.
But I think that this would take a backseat until we're fully staffed. Like, I wouldn't,
I would think the snowplow guy picks them, pays to put them back up after he knocks them over usually.
I mean, this doesn't hurt having it there in case we
Right.
want to.
Take the mailbox post off
Okay.
and scratch that off in future years, full staff.
Okay, the other question that I
We
had,
should be in that business.
are we on the next page here? I'm
Is
looking
there
at.
anything
page-
else on public works?
Okay, I just have the mailbox post. Is there anything else?
Were you taking off the
Patching and the mailbox.
patching?
I don't know.
Kane said take the patching off.
That's up to you guys. You guys are the elected officials.
I don't mind having there as being able to say, we're charging you this because the street has to be repaired because of damage. And it's in our fee schedule that this is the
Okay, yeah,
minimum
we
that
can
we
leave it on there. I just
are going to charge for it. Not that Kane specifically or the city department's going
On
to do
request.
it. But we would be able to get
Well,
repaired whether we hire it out or
let's
not.
not say upon request because.
As a
What about
resident, you know, we're not
potholes?
gonna go out and start looking for patches.
Well, exactly.
Right.
Well, the thing of it is I don't want to get billed $300 because I found a pothole somewhere.
No, that's what I was
Nobody's-
saying, is that's originally stuck. in
I do
that.
that anyway.
This will be something where if they call us, say, hey, can you patch this? No, that we're not gonna say we're gonna come out and patch it. This is there for so if somebody notices damages from a project, we'll then be able to have that in our pocket to address it.
Then you send
It
them a
would be
letter.
mostly code violation
Yeah,
fees,
you send-
basically,
you Send them a
or
letter explaining and then send them a bill.
In both cases, asphalt and mailbox, if we have staff next year, we'll add it back,
So you're taking the asphalt off, what you're doing, Ryan?
2026.
So what are you taking off there?
What's that?
The
What are
asphalt.
you taking off?
The asphalt and the mailbox.
Okay.
And I put a note, 2026, we'll put it back in.
You know, if there's damage to public property that goes noticed by city staff or residents or engineer, whoever, if we notice there's damage to public property and we know who did it or who caused it, right? I think that'll get communicated to Jason, the city council members, right?
Oklahoma has a 10% reward to report that.
This just gives us more teeth and it makes it so that it's uniform across the board as to what the city's expectations are for reimbursement. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I would make it clear that these aren't
Leave it off.
services
Leave
that
which one?
we are
Two of
offering.
them.
Both of them, yes.
Yeah, both of them up. And I'm looking at page 18. And Kane, you wanna kind of talk about this one too, the pool filling and the ice rink filling, because I've heard a couple of different things with that, if we use that for training or whatever else that way, how do you want to do that one?
That's up to the city council. If you guys want your volunteer fire department to fill pools and fill ice rinks, that's your guys' decision.
There should be
How
a
many-
fee
how many-
associated with that. to
How
the
many
city.
do we do a year?
I'm unsure on the number. I don't know. I don't know how accurate that number is, and I don't know how well that's communicated to the city, how that happens throughout the years, so.
I do know that I've had concerned residents come in that these people are getting pools and hockey rinks filled and wanting to know if the city's being reimbursed for the water, who's paying for the water. But I have yet to have anything come in for reimbursement for any of those kind of services. So I think that's why it needs to be put on there, so that there's a standard across the board.
Okay, I mean,
Some pools could be 2 or 3 truckloads of water going out there. So it's our equipment that's going out.
I'm asking.
So I think it's very legit to ask for ice rink.
It wasn't on 2024 fees, that's why I was just kind of,
Is that in addition to water and sewer fee, or is that
depends
with,
if they pull your water out of it.
I guess?
Take a long time to fill up a tanker truck.
That was the question that I had on here, was is the 150 plus the
Okay.
normal water bill?
Anything else on page 18?
Well, those are the only two I had on that. On
Pool
the,
filling?
It's like Kane, they were doing it from fire hydrants, right?
I do it
They
from this one.
typically do.
Where the water comes from.
Yeah, so that's why they need to contact Public Works. There won't be an extra bill because it's not coming from their water source. So it would just be that flat rate for using that, but contact Public Works first and.
I would recommend to anyone with a pool or an ice rink just to, use your own service. It's $150 for a pool fill. You could just run your hose at $5 per 1,000 gallons. Be cheaper to run your own hose.
This is for the convenience of having
How many
equipment.
gallons this one out here take? 50,000?
What's that?
What's this pool out here take?
It's not a pool, it's a rink.
It's a rink.
I don't know. That's done by the Lions Club. And
I thought you were a lion.
Okay,
You were.
so let's leave those on there, but I think we should let the fire department know it is.
Yeah, I
It
had
is a
talked
charge,
to
it's
him,
not a exercise or,
I had already talked to him about that, so I've talked to him about that, that's why I brought to my.
one editorial comment at the very top with the whack charge for 2024, where it says 2689 for the 2024 fees. It should say $2,853.17.
2,800 and what?
53.
Which page was
17
it?
cents.
Or what
It's
page?
just in there. That was our
Top
original,
of 18.
yes. The number there was our
Very top one.
2022 figure, and we've had 3% increases for the last 3 years, so the 2025 fee at 29.37.38 is correct. It's just that we had the wrong number on the sheet. One other editorial comment down on 10,000 gallons or more, the very bottom, instead of $5.49, it should be $5.46.
Which line is that on?
It's the very, it's
Oh,
10 to 100,000, about
It should be what
100,000 or
number?
more gallons. The 2024 fee, instead of $5.49, should be $5.46. It's just a typo, but. One other comment,
That's 100,000.
septic system, illegal discharge. I think over in the comments, we should say for discussion, notification to pollution control duty officer. If there's any leaks of any, whether it's a city or personnel, if there's an illegal discharge from your septic system, people need to know they're supposed to call whatever the right terminology there is, pollution control.
Minnesota State Duty Officer.
I got in there, notification to Minnesota State Duty Officer required.
Okay.
Added in there.
Thank you. Okay.
Have we had a lot of issues with that?
Uh,
Have we had a lot of issues with that?
No, but we can, you know, you know, in the case of the treatment plant, we've had different things that happen, but this is more from
This is kind of referring
from
to
a
residents.
personal residential.
These are
Yeah, This is referring to residents, not
More
the
residents.
city's issue down there.
There's nothing else on 18. Page 17,
17's fine.
our community development zoning, landing. These are all fees. The bottom third is all those Upstate County.
That's 17 Homestead.
That's page 17, yeah.
Page 13. Anything, does somebody else have some comments?
No other than I don't think this city should be raising the sewer rates 10%.
Well, you gotta break even and then
We don't charge anything for using notaries.
No. We could, but we never have. Some cities, I think the most I've seen is up to
Cities do.
$5. I've seen some do 10, but $5 is usually the customary one.
how many times do you do it, Jason?
Oh, I did one today. I've usually do it one or two every couple weeks. Recently, so.
I think we should put $5 on it. I mean, there's a cost to have that license.
I agree, there is.
$5.
No matter, I mean, this is your guys' decision.
What are you putting that under city?
Notaries.
And
I
the
think that's-
notary,
I think that's fair.
The administrative department.
$5. That sound okay?
So are you adding that to the bottom or is it in here already?
No, it's in there. It's about middle,
On page 18?
That's
page 13, it's under.
Okay.
it's right above the below the mileage reimbursement rate. And mileage.
And I would
Just
say,
the one change on page
I would say
13.
$5 per time, not necessarily like per document they bring in. Like,
Yeah.
if they've got to do 4 copies, just one charge, right?
Yeah.
And the last page is 17. I think we talked about that already.
Yeah, yeah, 17's fine, we're on 18. I think we're just done with septic.
17.
With the building permit stuff, building department, I don't think any of those fees changed too much.
No, they all look pretty good from 2024, I went over them.
Because it's all done by CMS, so they're,
Yeah.
and those rates didn't change this year. The big one on here is adding the one that's really new is the failure to obtain a building permit. And adding that as a fee, being able to find them 3 times the building rate fee. We have had quite a few people start doing the building without building permits, and that's led to some issues. So I think it's good to have that in there.
Page is that one on?
What page is that?
Under the or the building department, so page.
Is that what CMS charges?
Yeah, that's CMS charges, that's page 15. So,
Yeah, I think the permit is over 180 days old in several instances of that.
no, they don't even apply, they just put up something without doing a permit.
Yes, I understand. Okay. Okay. So I believe we've cut all the changes. Okay. Any other comments or discussion? If none, we'll do the roll call, voice vote.
Second here, sorry. Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
Council Phillips,
Aye.
Council Pendergrass,
No.
Councilor Spring,
Aye.
Councilor Reisdorfer.
Aye.
Approved. Consent agenda. We'll make a motion for that.
I had a couple of questions and, you know, maybe Jason, you can help me out on check.
Make a motion first.
Oh, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the one that I had, I don't know if it got misplaced or whatever, kind of help me out. Get to that. Check number that there is, it was with Peoples. And I was trying to figure out the difference between Peoples and of course we have People Services, the People Co-op. There was a one charge on check number 9562 on page 64.
What check number?
9562 or 9562. Or wait, maybe it's the other one, 9563, but it's the one for $19,861. And that's going for utilities?
Yeah, that's for the wastewater treatment facility, and it's for, these ones are for multiple months with these, because there's some that we're playing catch up on. A lot of these, but that's why there's so many bills too.
Exactly, electricity is expensive.
About 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
For out there, 10 grand a month on top of what we're paying for the other. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, that's why I was just kind of curious on that, because that was like, did we misplace the other one from People Services and put it up there? Okay, that explains it.
These other fees, these are for individual posts. Is that for the Christmas lights, turning them on and off and the services on them?
Some of them are for the Christmas lights, I believe. Some of them are just their usage. Again, these are over multiple months.
I see that, but I was. It says post office corner, I just assume that's just one
Yeah, all these are one
individual
light.
post.
Yep.
For the, basically for the Christmas light, on and off and the meter for a month, I suppose.
And ultimately, safety, which is on page 65 of 66. Was that for the air packs that were off of that? Check number 96.
Yeah, I see them. I don't know if I'm ahead without having. Looking prior, I would guess so. But. I think that's about right. Cause it was divided up over 2 payments. For
What number is that?
some for last year, some for this year.
9617 is on page 65 of 66.
The bottom of the page.
There's 2 of them, one's for 22.5, the other 13,450.
Yeah, I believe those are for the air packs there. Again, divided up for last year's usage, journal entries, and then this year's.
Check 9581.
What page?
Is that for $997 for discount auto? Is that for some tires?
No idea.
Dave, can you comment on that?
No, you can't. He said,
Page 60, about halfway in the middle.
yeah, it's close to the bottom, 9581's check number.
By A1.
Early December.
Yep, those are tires for the truck.
We have the other ones that we can put on public surplus then?
We do not,
We don't have the takeoffs?
no, we don't.
Will you trade them in or what?
Probably getting ground up somewhere, recycled.
So we just threw them away. Interesting, okay.
We went over this at the previous council meeting.
No,
The first responders did the same thing.
right, it wasn't. Understood.
Well, that being the case,
All right.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We got a motion here. All in favor of the consent agenda, signify by saying aye. Aye. Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Well, it's 8:17. Thanks, good to see you.
Hey, Daniel,
Much hand.
on the next
bud.
one, the last one I did, because I